Have you ever thought about the sheer ego, the sheer gall to do an operating system? Like, what does that actually mean to do an operating system? Because when you're you're doing successful software, let's just say you're Apple or you're Microsoft, something like that, and you go, you know what, we're going to make an operating system for millions of PCs. Even back in the day when, Bill Gates was working with Paul Allen on MS-DOS, he was like, you know what, we're going to team up here, we're going to write this, we're going to steal this operating system, and then we're going to work on it with IBM, and we're going to make it happen on the biggest platform there is, which is the IBM PC. Now, back then, it wasn't the biggest platform, admittedly, but imagine the ego in doing that, right? Just imagine saying, you know what, we're just this little company in the middle of, nowhere. I think they were in Texas at the time, or where were they, Texas? Anyway, somewhere really small in terms of the whole global worldwide sort of software industry. They weren't in California or anything like that where it was all going on. They were just sitting there doing things with MITs in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's where it was. So Microsoft were out there. But then you also had this fairly small company, and they were called Apple. And they said, you know what, we're going to make an operating system. Now, back in 1977, when the Apple II came out, I think that was probably okay, because they're like, hey, we've got this computer that we've made, and we really need to have some way to operate it. So why don't we make an operating system? But if you fast forward, a few years, you're basically saying, hey, we've got this Macintosh thing, or we've got this PC thing, and we kind of dominate, but we're going to make an operating system, and everybody's going to have to use that, whether they like it or not. And a lot of people don't like it, right? Even today, if you look on Reddit posts or, just Twitter or anywhere like that, social media, there's a lot of people who don't like the operating systems they use. Now, that could be Linux as well. It doesn't have to be just Mac OS or MacOS, as people say it now. It could be any type of operating system. So if you think about the needs that you have to go through in order to make an operating system, it's not a simple task. It's quite a full-on task to write an operating system. So you go through all of that and you're like, yep, I'm going to make an operating system for a leading hardware platform, whether it's your own or whether it's something that you know fairly well, in the case of, I guess Paul Allen, Bill Gates, and Linus Torvalds, right? But then imagine the ego that you're basically saying, hey, don't use that operating system, use mine. And I don't know what it is, but I kind of thought about that recently. And it's nothing to do with, software and your chops as a coder. It's basically about having an ego and saying, don't use any other software on your machine, use my software. And I was like, that's a crazy thought. Like, basically you're just saying all the other software out there sucks, and you're going to use my operating system platform. And not only are you going to use my platform, my operating system, you're going to make software that is compatible with my operating system. Like, it's one thing to make your own piece of software and say, hey, my software's cool, I like my piece of software, it does this, that, and the next thing, and it's better than the other guys because of X, Y, and Z. That's interesting, that's cool. And it might have a bit of ego involved in it, because you're saying that my software's better. But imagine saying that you've got an operating system and that nobody else's operating system is any better than yours. And then all the pieces of software that are going to be ever written have to be written for your particular operating system. Well, that's kind of how it was between Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and a few outliers. I mean, IBM and Microsoft were working together for a while on OS/2. That was ill-fated. And IBM were, at some point they were saying, hey, buy IBM because IBM are the bomb. Let's do it that way. But that faded into obscurity with Windows 3.0 or 3.1. That was kind of the end of OS2, really, and OS2 OS2, OS2 kind of struggled on until OS2 Warp version, was it 3 or 4? I can't remember, for a long time. But basically, in the end, it was dead. So there was Windows, there was Mac OS, and then there was Linux eventually, which came along in like, I don't know, I mean, it started in 1991, but it wasn't until at least 1995, 96 before it started gaining traction in any real tangible case. And that was kind of written by Linus as what would sound like a modest thought, because he was saying, hey, I'm just doing this as a hobby, just for fun. That's the title of his book, in fact. But if you actually look into it a little bit more, Linus is not a guy who's like got no ego. You know, he's got an ego, and you know, he didn't do it for altruistic reasons, to be honest with you. He wasn't the person who decided in the end that it was going to be released for free. That came later, and the Free Software Foundation was busy, and then GNU added the tools to, or the tools were added, the GNU tools were added to Linux, which were also free. So Linux eventually became a free software solution, but it wasn't, I don't think it was initially thought of specifically as a free software system. It just happened to end up that way. And Linus saw, oh, open source is good, let's do this. And but he was still saying, you know, Windows sucks, Mac OS sucks, use my operating system instead. And a lot of people thought that that was the right thing, because it potentially was better. I'm not going to say which operating system is better, because that's pointless and somebody will always disagree with me. But I'm just talking about the ego involved in actually making an operating system, saying the other operating systems out there don't do the job well enough. So I'm going to control the platform that you're using. And I think that's a really wild thing. I don't know what it is. It just came into my mind the other day. It was one of those like shower thoughts, and I can't let it go. I'm just like, you have got to be a serious egomaniac to make your own operating system, and not just make it, but force it down other people's throats to the point where you're saying, you will use my operating system. And I think the person who did that the very most has to be Bill Gates. You know, Steve Jobs, you could argue that he was similar, and he definitely had an ego. I mean, big time he had an ego, but his was kind of restricted from the operating system perspective because he was on his own platform. Like, he literally was the operating system, he was the hardware, he was the peripherals, he was pretty much everything. When the original Macintosh came out in 1984, it was a completely closed loop. And they were basically saying, don't buy anything else because everything else sucks, but buy our operating system, our hardware, and our peripherals all in one go. So that is egotistical in itself. But just to say, hey, all those other operating systems out there, they suck, use ours. That's kind of, that was kind of the thing. It wasn't out of a necessity, because other operating systems could and did exist. And so it was just, I just think it's a really bizarre thing to have that level of ego. It's just not something that's built into me. And yeah, so anyway, that was my shower thought that's been with me for a few days now, and I've gone, right, I need to put this on camera. If you think that is, if you've ever had that thought and gone, I wonder, then let me know. Put it in the comments below. Send me a message. I just thought it was really interesting to actually think about the ego that goes behind making an operating system, because you're not just making a piece of software. You're actually making a platform that other people will use to put software on. Difference between operating system software and application software. All right, that's my short little video. I thank you for watching. If you liked it, thumbs up, comments below, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And I will see you for another video sometime very soon. If you like this sort of like off the cuff commentary, also I'd love to know, because most of the time, you know, I do scripts, I do long form videos, I do some short form videos, but usually it's not filmed with my smartphone, as you can probably see. But you know, sometimes there's interesting things to talk about, and so I'll pick it up and give this a shot. So if you like this, let me know. Anyway, all good. See you later. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.